Hey guys, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for checking it out, or thank you for returning and continuing to listen. In this episode, I sit down and I chat with a very good friend of mine, Ken Roybal. Ken's got some amazing stories. He's had a really interesting career with LAPD. He was a chaplain at one time. He did backgrounds as both a police officer and as a civilian. Just a really fun interview. We were actually in the field together doing a call, and I had the recorder in my backpack. He was unaware of it. I've been trying to trap him into doing this podcast for quite a while, so I was happy that he agreed to do it. And it was just a really fun talk. We take a walk down memory lane, what it was like to be a boot back in the 80s, what it was like during the riots. Just a really fun conversation, and I was so happy to be able to get it. So this will be episode number 16 that we're going to be listening to. It's been going great, guys. Like I said before, I say every episode, thank you so much for checking the podcast out and keeping it rolling. If you could, click subscribe, comment, rate, whatever you can do on iTunes. That is always helpful for the podcast. And if you have any questions, or if you want to reach out to me, it's thingspolicec@gmail.com, and that's in the description of this episode. So without further ado, here's episode number 16.
This is Things Police See, First-Hand Accounts, with your host, Steve Gold.
Ken Roybal, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
I wanted to, to be completely transparent, Ken and I are doing some field work, and I don't think you're aware that I have my recorder in my bag. And I said, hey, can I interview you? And you said, I guess.
That was cool. Thank you.
So that's what we're doing now. We're driving on a highway, and I'm interviewing Ken. So if there's any pauses or awkwardness, we'll blame it on the road. Ken, you were a LAPD copper, as they say, for 20 plus years, and had an interesting career because you went from LAPD to a background investigator as an LAPD officer, then back to LAPD, the street, and now you're back in backgrounds.
Yeah, I was. It was interesting because I worked patrol, then went to backgrounds in 1997, and we were all getting taken out of backgrounds because they were civilianizing it. So they were hiring retired guys, which I wasn't. So then I retired in 2003 and went back as a background investigator, and that was kind of cool because I already knew the job. So it worked out for me pretty good.
So LAPD backgrounds basically it's majority civilian background guys. Most of them are ex-cops, cops injured on duty, retired cops, and then there's like a handful of actual sworn officers still doing the job, just so everybody knows. Ken, what I'm interested in is I'm kind of fascinated with how it was for boots back in the day. Like when you were a new LAPD cop back in the 80s, it was a little bit different than it is now. What do you think the major differences are when you're hitting the road as a boot and being trained rather than now?
Well, I'll tell you what, there's this old saying, that goes like, you're lower than whale shit, because that's what you were. When you were on probation in the 1980s in LAPD, it was still very hardcore. You had to earn your way in, you had to earn your badge, all that kind of thing. So boots on LAPD in the 1980s, you jumped in the car, you shut up, you didn't say anything, you didn't grow mustaches, you didn't...
Wait, stop.
What?
No mustache?
You were not allowed to grow facial hair on probation, so,
that's unreal.
One of my first training officers, we got in the car, and I was saying, okay, and this is the lights and the siren. Where's the siren? He goes, hey, look, all you have to worry about is looking forward in the car, and don't be touching my lights. You may roll down the window down, but don't be touching anything in the car.
So basically, just eyes open, mouth shut. You're there to learn.
Yeah,
that's it.
You're there to learn, and you were lower than whale shit, which is pretty low. So nobody took for granted that you had any rights, and you had to earn your way. And if you got the respect of the training officers, but that took months and months. So you were pretty much nothing.
But you were exceptionally baby-faced. And I know, because I know for a fact that they let you grow a mustache early.
They did, because we were on a call one time, and the only reason I got to grow a mustache because I was working with a trained officer named Mark, and we were on a call, and this lady, I'm trying to be hardcore because I wasn't brought up in South LA or anything like that, so I'm trying to be badass looking, and she comes up to me and goes, "You a rookie, huh?" I go, "Yeah, no." And so after that, my trained officer goes, "Yeah, you need to grow a mustache," because I look like a little child in my uniform.
I've seen some pictures of you when you were younger in uniform. It's great.
I was kind of cute. Yes, I was.
Adorable.
Yep.
It's interesting now because a lot of police candidates that you vet to become police officers haven't necessarily mixed it up in their life or gotten physical or been in a fight even. I guess you could say, in a way, things have become more civilized, but it's also kind of a detriment to the job because there are times when you're on the street and someone challenges you and you have to get physical. So I'm like, back then you probably had to, before you got through training, you probably had to prove that you could handle yourself. Oh,
that was a rite of passage, man. You had to. Your training officers would not. Let me see how I can put this. They would not discourage suspects who wanted to get in a fight because they wanted to test the probationers. And if you did not jump in a fight, you were done. If you acted scared or any way, or you showed any fear in front of suspects, it didn't matter who they were, ex-cons, people, whatever. You were expected to get in the fight and be right there with everybody else. If you didn't, you were toast.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure, especially no one wants the partner who cowers or isn't able to perform or cracks under pressure. So,
yeah, one thing that has changed since then to now is they actually gave training on the department where they encouraged us to get physical with the suspects and to get hands-on with them. And nowadays, I don't think that's part of training. So, yeah, we were encouraged to put hands-on, get physically involved, and use force to take suspects into custody.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a reality of the job, and I think I've seen nationally, just looking into it, some academies are even removing their, like most academies have like a boxing program or a wrestling program or a Krav Maga or some kind of martial arts or combat skills, of course, but some of them are just eliminating them. So, which isn't helping anyone because there is a lot of people who are getting into this job that have never had their bell rung. They've never been hit in the head, and they're going. So that's one more thing they're going to be afraid of with a plethora of other things on the street that can hurt you. Yeah,
one thing that people don't realize is they only see in the news when there's a shooting that happened, or an officer got killed or something like that. What they don't realize or they don't think about is that police work by its very nature is generally a violent profession. And it's not because police officers are thugs or they want to mess up people. It's because by nature of the job, it's just a violent profession, and you end up seeing things and doing things that are violent. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, like you said, it's the reality of it is not something that people want to come to terms with. I did a little digging on my smartphone here as we were traveling down the road. Ken has a website called policebackground.net.
Policebackground.net.
Okay, so he's kind of somewhat of an expert in the background field. I'd say you are an expert. You've been doing it for how many years?
Total of 16 years now. LAPD backgrounds.
Right, which are pretty thorough. So I dug into the message board, which a ton of people go on. So if you're looking into getting police work or joining a police department, there's a really great resource for that. But I dug into your section a little, and I was fascinated by something called the Probationer 100. Could you explain that to the folks?
That now, bear in mind, this is in 1980, and so it's not all politically correct as it is now. But we did. I was working as a probationer, and I don't know if your listeners are aware of what a probationer is, but when you get out of the academy, you do 6 months in the academy, then you do a year probation. So where you might get a job and you might be on, probation for 3 months or whatever, and then they go, okay, you're really hired now. Police officer probation is a year. So in the first year, I was working at Newton, and Newton Street was a small little street, and I was working morning watch, which is graveyard, and all of a sudden someone had the bright idea that there were 2 other probationers on that watch with me. One was a classmate and one was 2 months ahead of us. And someone had the bright idea in roll call that they should close off Newton Street and they should make us sprint in a race, the 3 probationers down the street to in front of the police station. All of roll call went out there, and they watched us and were bagging on us and cheering us. And the good thing that came out of it was whichever one of the 3 probationers won the foot race, their training officers got a case of beer.
Did any of the beer go to the victor of the race?
Oh, no. But I was the winner, so my two TOs got a case of beer.
That's excellent. I don't see anything wrong with something like that. I think
it's cool.
I mean, I'm sure you guys you weren't doing it under duress. You're probably laughing and having a good time.
Oh, we were having fun. That we were laughing about it and stuff, and I won, and all that kind of thing. And the training officers and even the lieutenant and sergeants were out there. It was just, it's kind of, I guess you could say it was team building, and it was part of. It was just part of a rite of passage type of thing where you're a good guy, you're a good sport, you're not a wuss and all that, and people may frown on it in 2018, but back then it was cool. It wasn't hard on anybody.
No, like you said, it's team building. Even if just play along with it, and you're going to have a good time. No one's going to get hurt with something like that. That's the thing they crack down on a lot now in organizations is any kind of, like, they'd call it hazing, but really that kind of activity kind of gels everybody together,
Yeah, we all had a good laugh about it, and they thought we were good guys, and everybody just had a good time with it, and it didn't cost anybody anything.
Another facet of your multifaceted career I am especially interested in is you were a police chaplain for a time.
Yeah.
And to me, this is just so interesting because I was raised Catholic and then kind of fell away from the church, and then I more recently become just Christian. Just basically, we go to a Baptist church now and kind of just refound God, I'd say. And we're going to church again, and I'm really kind of enjoying it. And the whole police chaplain thing is so neat because where I worked was very rural. Would be an extreme. It wasn't rural, but it wasn't a city department, so we didn't have and it was small, so we didn't have a lot of the different services that a place like LAPD would have. So we didn't if we ever saw a chaplain, it was from a much bigger department, neighboring department, would be at a funeral or wherever else you'd see. I don't know wherever you'd see a chaplain, but how do you become a police chaplain? How does that happen?
Well, you at that time, and I don't know how it is now. This was back in 1985. When I joined, when I became a chaplain, there were 4 other sworn chaplains, and there's a difference between sworn and the civilian ones. The civilian ones were the regular pastors in the churches, and they were volunteers from the different divisions, the churches, and they would volunteer their services. And then there were, with me included, there were 5 police chaplains that were sworn officers. And we had our regular police badge, and then when we were doing chaplain duties, we had an LAPD badge that said chaplain on it. And then we wore crosses on the lapels because the chaplains at the time were all born-again Christians. There weren't other denominations or other religions involved in it, so we wore crosses on our lapels. And we were directly assigned to the chief of police. So Daryl Gates was our chain of command along with the chaplain coordinator. So we, whenever I got called out to either to do some kind of counseling, grief counseling, or a funeral of a retired officer, we just went up to our watch commanders and we go, hey, I got an assignment from the chief, and I have chaplain duties, and there was nothing they could say. And then we would go out and we would counsel officers, and then we would do a lot of funerals.
Oh, I'm sure. And what's the training involved? Something like that?
They required us to have like I went to a 2-week. It was like university level program where I stayed overnight at this place called Narramore Christian Institute, and I had lay counseling training and things like that. And you didn't have to be licensed or anything like you didn't have to be ordained by any kind of church. They just looked at your qualifications and to see if you were qualified to be a chaplain. And then they're very select, but like I say, there was only 5 of us. And
five of you for all of LAPD?
Yep.
Oh, wow. So it's just kind of like a non-dominational Christian position, like.
Yeah.
Okay. And there was no other. Do other religions have a equivalent to a chaplain?
Yeah, they do nowadays. I think maybe there's maybe they're Jewish chaplains and Muslims and different denominations and different religious organizations that have their own chaplains, but they are LAPD officers. I think they're much bigger now.
Okay. And is there? It's going to be might be a dumb question, but is there a chapel?
There is. There's a chapel up at the academy, and they built it, and it's the funniest thing because it's a beautiful chapel. I mean, it's a small little thing. You could actually have a wedding up there if you wanted. It's gorgeous, beautiful, beautiful chapel, and it's right above the shooting range.
That's awesome. Is there a chaplain in the police department? Where do you fall in? Like a normal church, like were you guys affiliated with a local church, or was it just police chaplain?
No, it's just police chaplains. We were all independent.
Maybe like a deacon or something.
It depends on each member, each chaplain. Some were deacons, and some, I was just like a layperson, so I didn't have any title in a church, but my qualifications to be a chaplain were all that was necessary. And there was no official titles from any churches that you had to present.
Okay. And how long did you do that for?
5 years.
And I can imagine, I'm just guessing, the probably kind of a heavy job. I mean, you probably did a lot of funerals, like you said. So
yeah, that was kind of the thing about that I had to eventually stop doing it because
more funerals than weddings.
Yeah, it was more. I did 2 weddings, so that was cool. Actually 4 police officers who they decided to get married as couples, and I did the weddings for them. But the majority of them, the reason people call chaplains are because they're not members of a church, and they need a religious figure, and so they call it chaplain because when you have a funeral, you need to have like biblical words and things like that. So you call it chaplain because it's not attached to a church. And you don't have a pastor, so you call someone who knows the right words and sends the dead person off to God.
Understood. So after 5 years, that was time to pass the torch?
Oh, that was heavy duty. I was just, because when we would do funerals, I'd go maybe a couple days before the funeral and talk to the family and get stories and make sure they were doing okay and kind of like grief counseling and things. And then I would ask them, so tell me what, are there any special stories that you would like to share with people?
Oh, boy.
And all that. And it was a little bit heavy after 5 years.
Those are the most pressurized moments, I think, in any adult life is like, hey, can you say some words at your grandmother's funeral? Or like, can you run the funeral as a chaplain would? Or even like, hey, will you be my best man? Like, those are pressurized moments where you have to conjure up the right emotion, a touch of humor. You have to do everything right at this incredibly important moment in the beginning of this person's life or the end of their life. It's always like a dubious honor when you have to do that. It's like, yeah, of course. Oh boy.
Yeah, a funeral's a one-time shot, man. You can't blow it. Right. And it has to be beautiful, and it has to be touching. And it's, funerals, what I learned from being a chaplain is funerals aren't for the dead person. They're for the people that are living. And you have to give them a good sense of, wow, that was a great send-off. Nicely done. Because that's going to be where the difference between before the funeral and after the funeral is before the funeral there's mourning. the day of the funeral, after the funeral, that's the finalization of everything that led up to that day.
Yeah, that's
Closure.
5 years is plenty.
Yeah, that was getting a little heavy for me after a while.
Ken, can you tell the listeners about all those years ago when you were a boot, the first call you had that kind of like really got your adrenaline going and was kind of like your first exciting moment as a police officer?
Well, going back, like I say, I had never I wasn't brought up in a kind of, dicey street situation where I had to confront gang members or fight my way, to school and back. But so I wasn't really familiar with a lot of that stuff. So I remember specifically one time we were at a in Newton Division, and we were at a street corner, and we decided to talk to this guy. And so we stopped him, and my partner, I was in training, so he had me, check the guy, search him for weapons and all that kind of stuff. So anyways, the guy is a real, he doesn't seem like he's a violent criminal, didn't look like an ex-con. He just looked like some guy that was, some older gentleman, maybe in his 40s, going out for a beer run at the local liquor mart or something like that. So anyways, I didn't think anything about it. So I got behind the guy, told him to spread his legs, put his hand behind his back, kind of, having him lean on my elbow a little bit as I pulled him back, and I'm doing my thing. I'm searching his chest area and on the side and like that, and I go around his waist, and there's a pistol in his waist, and I have never done this before, but somehow or another LAPD did a good job in the academy, and I immediately grabbed the gun and I yelled to my partner, "Gun!" And my partner drew down on him, and I pulled the gun out and I put it in my pocket, and then pulled my gun on the guy, and we took him into custody. But let me tell you, if you spent all your time just playing basketball like I did, right, and the next thing you know, you're pulling a loaded gun out of a guy's waistband, boy, that's a pooper one right there. You're gonna poop in your pants for not literally, but figuratively speaking. That's a bit of a change. So yeah, that was kind of an adrenaline rush right there. And when we got done, I go, "That's right,
I'm doing it, baby."
I was on the job, man. But yeah, that was scary.
That's a good one. Yeah, that is true. I mean, and after that call, hey, these people have guns.
Yeah, it gets
walking
serious.
around. You have no clue who has a gun.
Nope.
No clue who wants to hurt you.
And I learned one thing right there is the people that you don't think would have a gun, those are the guys with guns.
Yeah, that is scary. Absolutely. Ken, can you tell listeners about your most intense moment on the job, or anything you were involved in that was just to the max, let's say?
Well, yeah, the one that the I guess on the job, there were a lot of intense moments, and ones that made the adrenaline got so heavy your head was going to explode, that type of thing. But I think one of the biggest times was during the LA riots, the whole Rodney King thing, and we were getting bashed by everybody for being LAPD because Rodney King got beat up and all that. But I remember that day specifically because I was working in an admin unit, and I was in West Hollywood at the sheriff's station for some reason, working Wilshire Division, and then I heard on the news that the police officers in Simi Valley, they were in Simi Valley at the trial, and they were acquitted of beating Rodney King. So I got back to the station, and we keep hearing reports of bad stuff happening in the street. And the first night, I was working for a captain at the time, and things started going downhill after that, and fires started, and
did they think that was going to happen? No, so this caught them off guard.
No, I mean, I was out there tootling around doing my, visiting the sheriff's station, doing what I had to do, get from them and all that, and nobody had a clue. We weren't ready for any of that. The last riot was maybe 1966 or something, the Watts riots.
So it's not like now they're ready for that stuff.
Oh, yeah. They're 24/7.
This is different.
And so we weren't ready. One of the funny things that you hear from the news is they say police officers were in full riot gear. And what that means is you put a helmet on. And all of a sudden,
Right.
now you're in full riot gear. So we were in full riot gear. But then I always work nights. So I was working I immediately got my friend was the sergeant doing assignments, and I immediately went to her and I said, I need to be on B watch, which is 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. because I was not going to work 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. and miss all the action that happens when the sun goes down. So we just started grouping up, and when LAPD goes into mobilization, which means the whole department goes on 12-hour watches, 12 on, 12 off.
Okay.
And then it also means that they go out in squads of 12. So we would have 4 cars with three officers in each car. And wherever you went, if you got a radio call from a regular patrol, you and your partner would go to this call. That was patrol. But patrol during the riots was 12 officers will show up somewhere. We weren't answering radio calls. If you went up and down the main drags during the first night of the riots, half of the buildings were on fire. We didn't answer radio calls unless they were at pawn shops or gun shops because they were looting anywhere where there were guns.
Right.
So anyways, the first night I have, everybody keeps their uniform in the everybody keeps their uniforms in the locker and blah 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 and all that. So my stuff's all available, but for some reason I didn't have any black socks for my uniform. So my captain gets to the station. Did you get
to go home then, or
no? So my captain gets to the station. I go, hey, do you have a pair of socks I can borrow? I borrowed a pair of black socks from the divisional captain,
Nice.
Which is very unusual. And then he gets there, and it's starting to get dark, and we were right next to a big shopping center called Midtown. And so this captain, he was probably maybe 6'3", 6'4", and we go out to the back. I walked out with him to the back of the station, and we looked over the wall. And I'm up on my tippy toes, looking over the block wall, and he's looking over at the block wall. And in the middle of the street, we see a trash bin. With the big trash bins
with like wheels on it.
Yeah, on fire, in the middle of the street, in front of the police station.
Oh man!
And this guy was such a cool cat. He looks at the burning the burning trash bin in his division that's going to shit as we speak, and he looks at it, and then this low voice, he goes, "That's not good." And then we walked away. But yeah, so we weren't going out en masse just yet. So we're all huddled up at the police station because they're trying to figure out what to do. This is like, okay, everybody open your riot books. No, there was nothing like that. The watch commanders were kind of going, oh, okay, we should do this. So then there's officers that are out in the field, and there's a help call that comes out. And a help call, when an officer needs help, that means someone's going to die. You need to get officers here because someone's going to die. And so there's a help call that comes out, and they had to use so much discipline because the automatic reaction from police officers is everybody jump in your car and everybody go out to the help call,
right,
and everybody stop whatever it is that's going to hurt the police officers. But because of the riots, they only said they held us back, and they only let one squad go out. So there was those times when it starts to get dark, help calls are coming out, only a certain amount of people could go. So they decided that it was already dark. It was probably 7:30 by that time, and I had started at 10 in the morning, and just went into full riot mode, and we all got dressed in our uniforms and like that. So I got assigned a squad, and they decided that right next to the police station, the people had the nerve to go into the stores and start looting the stores right next to the police station. They thought they had license to do that.
Like the burning dumpster. You just know it's unhinged.
Like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
And it's really surreal because, really? So we took our squad and another squad. So there were 24 of us that went next door, and we were going to stop the looters. So we're out there in the parking lot, and this is maybe 100 yards from the police station. And we're standing out there talking to these looters, and we didn't know at the time what to do. So we're talking to them and whatever, and all of a sudden we start hearing noise. This noise, you hear when it's metal hitting metal, and by the time it registered, we discovered that there were bullets hitting our police cars.
Oh man, yeah, because of course you probably wouldn't have experienced that sound anytime.
No, not unless it was a movie or something like that.
Right.
So, we realized that it was bullets. We told all the looters, "Get out of here!" And we jumped in our cars, and everybody kind of took off. But we drove behind a bank building and took cover there. And then we just it was at that moment that pucker factor was incredible. And I'm standing behind
it's like war.
Yeah, it is, because now they're sniping at us, and you can hear the bullets hitting the cars. So we jumped back there, and it was at that moment that I'm standing behind the bank with my gun out. We couldn't see the shooters because it was dark, and they were shooting from across the street. And I'm sitting there talking to myself, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? And immediately after that, there was the group of us all got together, and we decided, it was one of those times where you go, oh no, I don't think so. So we all jumped in our cars, all 24 of us, and we just hit across the street. But unfortunately, they were all gone. But that would have been a really hellacious firefight if they had stayed and decided to duke it out with us. Because by that time, once we realized what was going on, we were ready.
I mean, that takes a lot of bravery, especially initially being pinned down by the gunfire. And let me get into your head a little bit when you're back there and you guys are all like kind of getting your bearings, behind cover, getting your guns out. Like, were you married at the time? Did you have kids at the time?
Yeah, that was a pretty difficult thing for me, because Jenny and the kids. So we have 2 kids, and they were maybe. Let me see. At that time, my daughter was maybe. Let me see. She was maybe about 6, and so my son was probably about 8.
Because they have to flash through your mind when you're like, because you could die.
Yeah, I mean, well, the tough part was that after the first 12-hour shift, and all they're doing is they're seeing what's on TV, and they know that the city of Los Angeles is just going to pot. I mean, there's plumes of smoke. Everything's on fire. There's shootings. People aren't stopping in the street because other crowds of people are running out to their cars at stoplights. So they're just plowing through all these people and mowing them down because they're afraid. And so I get done with my 12-hour shift, and I've been shot at, and I get home, and I'm dead tired, and my wife and my kids, they're tucking me into bed because I need to get some rest, because I got to get up and I got to go back to work in about 10 hours.
You're a little weary.
Yeah, so I'm lying in bed saying, good night, everybody. It's
now, are you telling your wife about getting shot at and all that stuff, or are you trying to not tell her?
I think I mentioned it to her, and she was kind of upset about it, but I knew I had to go back.
Yeah.
So we're just kind of sitting there on the bed, and I'm sitting up, and the kids are by my side, and my wife, and my little daughter. I think if I remember, she's maybe 4 years old, and I'm getting ready to go to sleep, and my daughter looks at me, and she says, "Daddy, I don't want you to die."
Oh.
And then I went to sleep, and I got up a few hours later, and I drove to L.A., and I'm on the Santa Monica freeway, and there's nothing but plumes of smoke because the city's on fire. And
my gosh.
One thing I'll say about LAPD officers and any police officer anywhere, the worst in the world could happen, and they're still going to go back, and they're still going to do their job. no matter what. And I had to leave my family, and my little daughter is telling me, I don't want you to die. So I had to do everything I could, to stay alive. So that was basically it. That's the tough moment.
Yeah, you're like, I don't want to die either.
No, I don't want to die either.
I mean, that's incredible, man. I mean, how easy would it be to pick up the phone and go, I'm sick?
Yeah.
I'm not coming in. I mean, you'd lose a lot of face that way, but it takes a lot of courage, and the fact that so many officers, day after day during the riots, kept going back. And I've said it many times on this podcast before. Not many times, but a couple times before when the riots have come up. On the East Coast where we were, we thought L.A. was going to burn to the ground. We were watching television at night going, oh, it's over. Like, it's finally happened. L.A. has eaten itself.
Oh, it's interesting because the world, I mean, if you were down anywhere near South Central or Mid-City or anything, everything was burning down. And I remember one time there was a story, the second night of the riots, we were going to, by that time we were protecting firefighters because a firefighter had been shot at. I'm like, who shoots at firefighters, for crying out loud? So our job then was to protect the firefighters, and we're going down the street with our batons out and everything, ready to take some kind of formation to protect the firefighters. And this lady had been in front of a street where they had barricaded the street with cars and stuff because they were going to protect their own street. And she looks at us right in the face, and she goes, "We don't need you." Like, I'm like, okay,
geez, okay.
Great. And then there's just different little stories within the riots. At first, what was funny is talk about seeing God in everything. And so this one time there were buildings that were burning down. The fire department wasn't even going to them. They were just whole shopping centers that were just slowly burning to the ground. And one time there was this electric pole that was on fire, and it was slowly getting to the top, and we're standing there, and then it gets to the transformer part of the fire pole. I mean the electric pole,
right?
And all of a sudden there's oil in it or something, in those big metal parts of it. It exploded, and it was beautiful because it was like this bright light, and I'm looking at it, and I'm a Christian, and I was certain at that moment that Jesus was coming for me right then. It was such a brilliant,
those can burn your retinas looking at those when they blow up.
Oh, now I know.
Yeah, it happened to a sergeant of mine. It blew up. He had to take like a week off.
That was amazing. And do you want to hear about the Koreatown stuff?
Yes, I do.
So Koreatown was in Wilshire at the time, and what they were doing was the Koreans had shopping centers and things that they own businesses at and stuff, and they were armed to the teeth. They had semi-automatic rifles and all kinds of stuff.
I heard they protected their stuff hardcore.
They did. And one time we were on the corner of this 6th and Western, and this person, I don't remember, who comes over to us, and he goes, yeah, hey, there's a bunch of guys with guns over here. So, of course, that's like candy to police officers.
Right.
You're offering us candy. So we went over to the corner. It was a block up, looking for guys with guns, and it was an ABC food market, and the whole shopping center was blocked off on the driveways with cars. There were guys on the roof with nothing but semi-auto rifles, and we looked up at them, and we were outgunned, and we go, yeah, that's okay. So we left.
I've heard of other stories like that when they're like people in neighborhoods arming themselves. And the police kind of being like, well, be careful.
It helps. Yeah, it helps
for the
us. And the second night of the riots, because the fire department wasn't responding with ambulances and stuff very often, that we got a call of a shooting that had happened, and there were 5 people down. So what had occurred is that they had a small Korean radio station in Koreatown. And what they were doing is they were having people like shop owners and things. They were calling up the radio station saying that, oh, there's bad people out here. There's bad people doing this. And these guys listening to the radio station with guns in their cars, they were patrolling Koreatown to protect all their fellow store owners and things like that. So this one group of 5 guys in a very small car, they showed up, I think it was at 2nd or 3rd in Irolo in Wilshire Division, And they didn't know that there was another group on the rooftop that was armed and looking for bad people that were looting and things like that. So they get there, and there's the group on the roof saw them, and they think they're bad guys. So they proceed to open fire, so much open fire on this car that we got there, and the car looked like Swiss cheese, literally Swiss cheese. There were so many bullet holes. And then the 5 guys, 4 of them were leaning up against the glass building. They were just all shot to hell. And there was one guy, his name was Edward Song Lee, and he was laying in the street on his side. And because it was the second night of the riots, the ambulances weren't really responding because there were too much stuff to do.
Right.
So it took about 20 minutes for the ambulance to arrive. In the meantime, I'm standing next to Edward, and his eyes are looking at me. His face is turned. He's looking at me, and I'm looking at him, and I keep looking back away, and I'm looking at him, and slowly he dies.
Oh, man.
And the ambulance gets there, and he was dead, but the other guys were just messed up. I don't know what happened to them, but I specifically remember Edward was looking at me in the eyes as he was dying, and there was nothing I could do.
Wow. And these were another Korean group that were presumably doing the same thing as the people on the roof, but they just didn't know each other.
Yeah, it was just like a miscommunication where they thought they were the bad guys. And to tell you how heightened the tensions were, they didn't wait for them to get out of the car. They shot them in the car.
Wow, that's insane.
That's scary.
That is, yeah. Wow. Ken, I want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast. You had truly great stories. And I have a proposition for you. Would you come back on if some listeners had some questions about backgrounds?
Oh, absolutely. Always happy to help.
That'd be fun. So anybody listening who's thinking about being a police officer, who's curious about a background investigation, what you're going to face, what's involved in it, write in some questions, and I'll have you back anyways. But it'd be fun to have you back on to answer some listener questions, because I know just from the emails I've been getting over the last month, I know that there's a lot of listeners out there that are possible future candidates. So that would be probably helpful for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I would always be willing to come back. I always want to help backgrounds or candidates get in the system and become police officers. We need good guys.
Awesome. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.